can go.
Yes.
So the United States had to get involved in the Second World War, so in the First World War. However, shortly after the war, it retreated back into its isolationism because it did not want to be involved in the politics and the problems and rivalries of the old world as Europe and the rest of the world were known. However, American withdrawal turned out to be a tactical error because the movement of international relations after the First World War was such that within another generation, the war was at a greater crisis when the Second World War broke out from the 1st of September 1939. Initially, the United States was neutral and dealt with the contesting parties almost on equal basis, trading with them and doing all that. However, Japan, which was a major party in the Second World War, had its own policies, which made it inevitable to come to blows with the United States of America, much as the US and Japan managed uneasy relations in the years building up to the Second World War. Japan inadvertently provoked America into joining the Second World War when, out of tactical error, in December 1941, it decided to attack the American harbor at Pearl Harbor. America suffered huge casualties, as a result of which America decided to enter into the war. The American entry into the war turned the tide of the war because while Europe was bogged down with the constraint of post First World War reconstruction, debt repayment, America caught on this and developed itself to become unarguably the strongest country in the world. Its industries, its commerce, its military all grew rapidly. And so the placing of American resources at the disposal of the Western allies made it uh, inevitable for the tide of the war to turn against Germany and Japan. Ultimately, uh, Germany and its allies were defeated, and this inaugurated another war, the post-Second World War war. As the Second World War was concluding, there were widespread beliefs that there was a need for another international organization to replace the League of Nations, which had not succeeded in fulfilling its mandate of collective security and defense for the world. And America prominently participated in the processes leading to the establishment of by 1945, the UN was declared with the profiting from First World War and post-First World War experience. America was actively involved in uh, the foreign relations after the Second World War. This was due to two main reasons. One, the US has felt that if it retreated into its isolationism again, political extremism similar to Nazism, which plunged the world, which plunged the world into the Second World War would develop in Europe. This was particularly when the Soviet Union was arguably the strongest country in Europe at the time. And so America felt that if it retreated to uh, the post-Second World War isolationism, it risked being isolated, it risked seeing the victory of extremism and socialism. And America has arrogated to itself the responsibility of making democracy the order of the day in the world. And so America prided itself with being the most democratic country in the world and wanted to export this idea to the rest of the world. And so it became inevitable that the United States should be actively involved in international affairs. Apart from this, most of all of Europe and the other parts in a way that was much more devastating than the First World War. While the casualty in the First World War have been put at 10 million dead and 23 million other rendered useless for life, it was calculated that in the Second World War, at least 50 million souls perished, about 20 million of these in Soviet Russia alone. And the destruction of the European economy risked extremism prevailing all over Europe. So it was felt that if there was no guiding hand of Europe, extremism would take over the control of international relations. And it will become difficult, if not impossible, for the US to either conquer or control this extremism. And so, in order to avoid a situation of ideological extremism, the US felt it should not isolate itself as it had done in the interwar years, and that extremism and poverty in Europe may make it easy for socialism and the Soviet Union to prevail all over. To prevent this, the US felt that the economies of Europe and the society must be reconstructed, and this could not be done in a situation where the US was isolationist. The US therefore came up with the policy package of the Marshall Plan, which was a comprehensive policy of economic reconstruction of Europe. Part of this plan was the need for the integration of the whole of Europe so that they could complement one another, benefit American experience of economy of large scale. The US has seen that with the coming together of the 13 colonies, they were able to benefit from the economy of large scale. To assure the security in the face of preponderant Soviet Union, uh, with the rest of Western Europe. And this was the North Atlantic Treaty Organization that was established in 1949. The reason for NATO was an assurance of American nuclear protection for Western Europe, which was at this time non nuclear. Also, the behavior of the Soviet Union could be more assuring. As we mentioned in the last class, for strategic exigency, the Soviet Union was allowed to occupy some countries in Greece, Iraq, Iran, with the expectation that after the Second World War, it will withdraw. But after the war, the Soviet Union was intervening and influencing political developments in countries of Eastern Europe that fell under its with a view to ensuring the emergence of socialist governments. When America uh, made this observation, he came up with a policy response known as containment, which was propagated by the American Secretary of State George F. Kenner. By containment, it was